I'm getting married. A man stood by the hospital bed, looking down at the woman on the ventilator. Married? The woman struggled to open her eyes, her voice weak. Why are you suddenly telling me this? Who are you marrying? The man looked at her in silence, his lips slightly parted. Sayaka. Sayaka? Murakami Sayaka? When I was a child, I was always alone. She was the only one who would talk to me. That's why I trusted her more than anyone. Impossible. Kane's pupils contracted abruptly, and tears welled up in her eyes. When did you two get into that kind of relationship? You're joking, right? Tell me you're joking. The man lowered his gaze, and a heavy sigh fell upon the hospital room. The man turned his face away, his gaze cold. You're not going to live much longer anyway. I'm not asking for your blessing, just your understanding. For the sake of those of us who are still alive. He turned and walked towards the door. Goodbye. Kane struggled to sit up. Wait. She collapsed weakly back onto the bed, her face under the respirator filled with despair. How could this happen? My life is so miserable. I was just told I don't have much time left, and my family is already eyeing my assets. What's even more ridiculous is that my best friend and my lover have betrayed me. I want to die. The waveform on the heart monitor fluctuated violently, then flatlined. A long, piercing beep broke the silence. A voice echoed in the void. Ms. Kane. Ms. Kane. I woke up with a start. Huh? Kane looked around, her eyes filled with confusion. A man in a suit with a halo over his head appeared. He was holding a clipboard and wore an apologetic smile. Oh dear, I'm terribly sorry. It seems there was a small error in our system when Ms. Kane was born. Kane was bewildered. System error? What's that thing on your head? She pointed at the man's halo. By the way, where is this? I remember I was in the hospital. You're right. The man in the suit tilted his head slightly. You haven't realized yet? His expression turned serious. Ms. Kane, you passed away today at 6:08 p.m. You have reached the end of your life. The man cleared his throat. Anyway, rather than dwelling on that, let's continue our previous topic. Please take a look at this. He handed her a document. What do you mean, dwelling on that? This is a huge deal for me. The man in the suit explained, this was your status at birth. Ms. Kane, do you see the parameters for appearance, ability, wealth, and health? Kane looked down at the document. I see them. But due to an error, Ms. Kane, your love parameter was set to 0. Kane's pupils contracted sharply. What did you say? The man in the suit continued to explain, these parameter values are adjusted based on the status of one's previous life. So, a love parameter of 0 is basically impossible. The document clearly stated, name, Kane Hannah, love, 0. The man in the suit bowed deeply, a system error warning flashing on his halo. It seems my negligence led to an input error. I'm deeply sorry for this. The man gave an awkward smile, a drop of cold sweat trickling down his forehead. He handed over a document. It read, name. Wait, Kane interrupted him. Are you saying this is the reason why no one loved me? The man nodded in embarrassment. Yes, that's probably it. But because you were frail and died young, you can start your next life sooner. As compensation, we will grant you the freedom to choose your birthplace in your next life. Is this guy trying to encourage me? Saying it's a good thing I died early? Kane roared. Are you kidding me? You sent me in such a painful life. The man's gaze drifted. Then, we will also give you a special privilege. After all, due to my mistake, you live a life without love. Kane tilted her head. A special privilege? The man spread his arms. Yes, but it's a secret. What is with this guy? The man gave a confident smile. I believe this will make your next life much more interesting. Kane looked skeptical. The man held up a glowing panel. Well then, you can be reincarnated into any world you wish. Kane looked up at the panel, a flash of surprise in her eyes. Any world? The man answered affirmatively. Yes, anywhere you want to go. Any time is possible. The man's voice rang out. Whether it's the fictional world of a novel or a movie, or the past, present, and future, anything is possible. A hand gently flipped an hourglass. Time begins to flow. Please imagine the world you wish to go to. Kane's eyes were blank. But I don't have any particular place I want to go. The man smiled and suggested, well, have you read any interesting books recently? With a light tap of his finger, virtual cards floated in the air, each depicting a different story world. Kane's gaze was drawn to them. Well, for some reason, the romance novel that Sayaka recommended to me suddenly came to mind. Kane made up her mind. I'll choose this one. The man clapped his hands in delight. That was much faster than I expected. He pointed to an open door. Then, please go through that door. The man urged with a smile. Yes, please go ahead. Kane looked at the door hesitantly. Go there? Kane took a deep breath. All right. She took a step, walking towards the door to her new life. This feels a bit strange. My body feels like it's tilting. The man suddenly spoke up. By the way, Ms. Kane. Kane turned back. What? The man explained, your social statuses are not equal, so there will be an adjustment in the next life. Kane grabbed him by the collar. What? What does that mean? The man waved goodbye. Well then, good luck in your next life. Kane's body began to turn transparent, data fragments flaking off her. She screamed in terror. Wait. A bright light swallowed everything, leaving only a futile cry. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, filling a magnificent room. The carved walls and ornate furniture silently spoke of the luxury here. A maid's voice whispered, "Oh, how adorable." Attendants surrounded a huge bed. Another maid exclaimed, "My lord, this princess is just too cute." A warm hand gently stroked the baby's head. "Welcome to the Duchy of Pazzi, Flora." A silver-haired man leaned down, his eyes full of tenderness. "Come, daddy." He carefully picked up the baby. "I'm Flora. I've really been reincarnated." The man gazed at the child in his arms. The surrounding attendants gasped in admiration. "Oh my, so cute. Flora, it's a pleasure to meet you." A maid discovered with surprise, "My goodness, Her Highness the Princess is smiling." Flora let out a contented gurgle in the castle. "Flora, a lovely name. I can't wait to see myself healthy." The underworld official of this life finally did his job properly. Now, at 6 years old, I'm still growing up surrounded by my family's love. But Flora closed her eyes, cupping the shining light on her chest. Damn, that underworld system. She is Flora, 6 years old, the youngest daughter of the Duke of Pazzi. Flora cupped the gem on her chest, its light flickering faintly. The man's figure appeared in her mind. He had said, "Your social statuses are not equal, so there will be an adjustment in the next life." Flora's cheeks flushed, her eyes filled with confusion. Is this the so-called adjustment? Although I was born into a prominent family that has produced sword masters for generations, I am unable to display any abilities. And am extremely anxious. Flora closed her eyes, a tear silently slipping down. She clasped her hands. "Let's try one more time." Flora suddenly fell backward, her limbs spread out, her face full of despair. "No matter how I try, my pitifully small amount of mana hasn't changed at all in 6 years. It neither increases nor decreases. My father is a sword master, and my mother is a mage from the Magic Tower. My eldest brother, Carloman, is a sword genius. Even my twin siblings, Robert and Armand, are exceptionally talented. Why is it just me? Forget it. I'm going to eat something sweet." Flora picked up a cookie and popped it in her mouth, savoring the momentary sweetness. Suddenly, her red eyes widened. Could it be? The cookie slipped from her slightly open mouth. It fell to the floor. Has my next life failed too? Flora froze, her pupils shrinking in fear. The northern territory of the Carcassonne Empire. A magnificent white castle stood in the snow. Flora buried her face in her thick shawl, shivering from the cold. So cold, I'll probably never get used to this. Maybe it's because I'm still a child. Flora shivered and ran quickly into the warm interior. So cold, so cold. I have to get inside quickly. The northern winters are known for their severe cold and blizzards. The Pazzi family was able to establish itself in this harsh land because they're the only family capable of defeating the high-level magical beasts here. Thus, they're also known as the Monster Ducal family. However, I'm the only one in this family with no abilities or physical strength. Robert hugged Flora tightly. "Flora, come and play." Armand panicked beside them. "You can't hug her that tight." Flora struggled. "Help me." Flora's cheeks were slightly flushed, her eyes bewildered. "This is so strange. Why is only my body so weak?" With a loud bang, the door was slammed open. "Flora, are you in there?" Flora jumped in fright. "Brother Robert?" Robert stood at the door, scratching his head with a confused look. "Sorry, I accidentally pushed too hard." Just how sturdy is Robert's door? Armand looked at Robert reproachfully. "Hey, can't you control your strength?" Robert looked away, embarrassed. "I didn't do it on purpose. These are my twin siblings, Robert and Armand. Because I'm not in good health, they always take good care of me." Robert and Armand smiled and held out their hands. "Flora, let's build a snowman together." Although they're only 12, they always try hard to act like a big brother and sister. Flora wrapped her white shawl tighter, hesitating. "Build a snowman?" She looked down at herself. "On a day like today, it's best to stay by the fireplace and drink hot cocoa. If I go out in this cold weather, I'll definitely catch a cold." A pair of shiny black leather shoes appeared at the door. Carloman's voice called out, "Flora, I built a snowman outside. You should come see it. Robert and Armand are here too." Flora looked up. "Brother Carloman, She immediately broke free from the twins' embrace and shouted excitedly, "Let's go. You already built it? Thank you so much." Carlo Man scooped Flora up in his arms. She laughed happily in his embrace. Robert and Armand protested with puffed cheeks. "We invited her to play first." "Brother, you're so unfair." Carlo Man chuckled. Inviting her to build a snowman and inviting her to see a snowman are two completely different things. Flora was carried to the balcony, overlooking the snow-covered courtyard. Wow. A huge snowman stood in the center of the courtyard, wearing a bucket for a hat and a pink scarf. Robert and Armand were dumbfounded. "So big. What did you build such a huge snowman?" Flora's cheeks flushed, her eyes full of admiration. "As expected of Brother Carlo Man. But as soon as I came out, my nose started to run." A gentle female voice rang out. "Flora, you'll catch a cold dressed so lightly. Come here, let mommy hold you." Flora's body felt light as she was lifted into her mother's warm embrace. Her mother smiled gently. "Come on, mommy. Do you feel warmer now?" Flora buried her face in her mother's neck. When mom holds me, I'm not cold at all." In the distance, Robert was crouching alone in the snow. "Brother Robert, what are you doing?" A snowball came whistling through the air, hitting their mother squarely in the back. Flora screamed, "Mom!" Father chuckled and put his arm around Mother. "Oh dear, my Flora got a fright." Mother also smiled, looking towards the snow. "Flora, they're having a snowball fight. Should we join in?" The snowman looked bewildered. What?" Flora stood next to the snowman. "This isn't quite the snowball fight I know." In the snow, Robert and Armand were in a fierce battle with their parents. Snowballs flew through the air and exploded, and laughter echoed throughout the courtyard. Everyone was laughing happily, throwing snowballs at each other. But Flora wasn't sure if it could still be called playing when the snowballs flew at incredible speeds and exploded on impact. Carlo Man turned to the twins. He instructed them seriously. "When you throw snowballs at Flora, you must be gentle." Robert and Armand immediately straightened up. "Of course. Don't worry, we understand." They turned to face Flora, their faces breaking into brilliant smiles. "Flora, let's have a snowball fight." Flora squeezed her eyes shut in fear. A snowball flew at high speed. Flora was hit squarely by the snowball and fell backward. She screamed as she sat in the snow. Flora's eyes turned into dizzying spirals. She was completely stunned. A snowball fight? Is it supposed to be such a cruel survival game? Flora lay in the snow. She whimpered, "Mommy." The whole family rushed over in a panic. Flora." Robert, his face full of guilt, ran to her side. "Flora, I'm sorry." Father knelt down, gently stroking Flora's head. "Flora, are you all right?" Robert asked anxiously, "Are you okay? Is your nose broken?" Flora rubbed her eyes, and a nosebleed started. "It hurts." A drop of blood fell onto the snow. Robert shouted in terror. "Flora, oh no, she has a nosebleed." As expected, this life isn't going to be easy either. Father slung Flora over his shoulder and sprinted towards the house. He shouted anxiously, "Lucas, where are you, Lucas?" Flora was jostled so much she became dizzy. "Oh my God, I'm going to faint. I feel like I'm about to die. Not from the nosebleed, but from dizziness." This family, how on earth did they survive in this environment? Father finally stopped running. Flora peeked out from over his shoulder. He finally stopped. A man with glasses walked over quickly. "He is the Pazzi family's resident doctor, Lucas. I've always been grateful for his care." Lucas looked panicked. "My lady, what happened to you? Why are you having a nosebleed?" Father explained. "She was hit by a snowball. She looks even weaker than before." "Could she be sick?" Flora replied weakly, "I'm fine, just a little dizzy. I can't possibly tell him I'm dizzy because Dad carried me while running. Can I?" Flora sat on a chair, bloody tissues on the table. She let out a long sigh. Phew. The nosebleed finally stopped. Dr. Lucas turned to Flora's family. "As I've said before, the Duke's daughter is extremely frail, completely different from the rest of the family." Flora sat with her back to them, her silver hair hanging quietly. "I've heard that phrase ever since I was little. The Pazzi family has no concept of weakness, nor do they know how to treat someone who is weak. I'm the odd one out in the Pazzi family. It's a good thing Lucas is here." Father looked at her with a worried expression. "Flora, I'm really sorry. I'll be more careful from now on." Robert clenched his fists, tearfully apologizing. "Flora, I'm sorry." Carlo Man leaned over Flora on the bed, his face full of self-reproach. "If only I'd been more careful." "Flora, I'm really sorry. Is your nose okay?" Flora gave a reassuring smile. "I'm fine now. Thank you, Brother Carlo Man." Carlo Man said gently, "Get some rest, Flora. Call me anytime if you need anything." He gently kissed her forehead. Flora closed her eyes. Flora lay in bed. After resting, she felt much better. Seriously, why are my physical stats so weak? What's going on? And what was that special benefit they mentioned? Oh well, it's no use thinking about it. I should just sleep. She closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. The rabbit looked back in terror. Sharp claws slashed through the air, striking its back hard. It fell heavily to the ground with a muffled grunt. A trail of blood stretched across the snow. The rabbit was in agony. It collapsed weakly, its body twitching in the snow. I have to get out of here quickly. Consciousness began to fade. It let out a final plea. Someone, please, save me. A figure in a black cloak stopped, their voice low. My lady, should we keep searching? Snowflakes fell on the withered branches, covering the ground in a layer of silver. The mother beside him was worried. We've searched enough. Let's stop here. Robert, it's almost dawn. We should go back. Armand lowered his eyes, his voice full of disappointment. If only we could have found a few more. Mother gently hugged Armand and Robert. She comforted them softly. It's all right. We'll come look again next time. Armand and Robert snuggled into her embrace and answered in unison. Okay. A rustling sound came from bushes. Robert was instantly alert, his eyes sharp. He broke free from the embrace and rushed towards the source of the sound. I'll go check. Mother reached out in alarm. Robert ran off without looking back. He shouted, I'll be right back. Mother followed closely behind. Wait, I'm coming too. Robert pushed aside the snow-covered bushes. The sound seemed to come from here. He saw a small, pure white rabbit huddled by a stream, trembling. Its blood-red eyes were filled with terror. Robert carefully scooped up the rabbit. He gently stroked its soft fur. Oh my! He saw the bloody wound on the rabbit's leg. This rabbit seems to have been attacked by a magical beast. Mother came closer, looking at the poor little thing. Yes, and its mother is nowhere to be seen. It's too dangerous to leave it here. What should we do? A glimmer of hope appeared in Robert's eyes. Can we take it back to the manor? Flora would be so happy to see it. He added, I'll put it in my subspace for now and take it to a safe place right away. Armand quickly stopped him. You can't do that. That's the most dangerous place right now. Robert stopped. Oh, sorry. Laura. Mother and Armand were stunned. Laura? Is that its name? Robert looked proud. I took it from Flora's name. How about it? It's a good name, right? He happily hugged the little rabbit in his arms. Armand and Mother looked at each other and smiled. It really is a bit like Flora. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, filling the lavish room. Flora was fast asleep on the soft bed, her cheeks flushed. She turned over in her sleep. She let out a contented sigh. Kanai rested her chin in her hands, gazing adoringly at the sleeping Flora. Oh, what a lovely sleeping face. She looks just like a doll. She leaned down and whispered in Flora's ear, Miss Flora. Flora murmured in her sleep, her nose twitching slightly. Kanai's eyes filled with emotional tears, and she clasped her hands tightly. She's just too cute. That's right, I must draw the young miss like this too. Kanai was widely recognized in the ducal manor as the maid who admired Flora the most. She started learning to draw 3 years ago, just to capture her young master's every move. Kanai's brush flew across the paper, sketching the outline of the peacefully sleeping Flora. Her bangs have grown quite a bit. I'll have to make a new hair accessory. Without magic to record images, this was her way of preserving the moment. A clumsy, but incredibly sincere attempt. No matter what kind of hair accessory, the young miss will surely look beautiful in it. Just imagining it. Kanai was thrilled, her eyes sparkling. The tip of her pen rustled on the paper, as if composing a silent hymn of praise. Footsteps sounded by the door. Kanai turned around abruptly. Ah, my lady, I was just about to. Armand raised a finger to his lips. Shoo! Kanai immediately fell silent. Oh my, the young master is here too. I suppose I'll have to give up my spot for now. She quietly stepped aside, watching as Armand tiptoed towards the bed. Armand leaned down, gazing tenderly at Flora. Wow, Flora was sleeping soundly, hugging a teddy bear. Her silver hair was scattered on the pillow like a pool of moonlight. Armand cupped his face in his hands. So cute. She's practically an angel. Robert also leaned in, his eyes full of adoration. He gently stroked the bedsheet. Flora's eyelids fluttered and slowly opened. A hint of crimson appeared amidst the silver hair. She looked around in a daze. Brother Armand, Brother Robert? Armand and Robert said in unison, Flora, wake up. We have something special for you. It's a present. Flora, still sleepy, a present? Armand and Robert exchanged a smile. Yes, it's downstairs. Do you want to go see it now? Flora's eyes instantly lit up, her cheeks flushing. In my past life, I never imagined a scene like this. Then, Flora was led down the magnificent staircase, holding hands with Armand and Robert. Whether it was Christmas or my birthday, I never received any presents. Compared to my life back then, everything now feels like a dream. To think I would one day receive a surprise gift. I'm so happy. The three of them stopped in front of a huge double door, which was carved with intricate golden patterns. Robert placed his hand on the doorknob. All right, I'm opening the door. Flora held her breath. Okay. Armand and Robert threw the doors open. Tajda. Flora's pupils dilated instantly. In the room behind the doors, sunlight poured through the windows, flooding the floor. On an ornate, low table, there was an exquisite golden miniature bed. On the little bed, a small white rabbit was curled up, sleeping soundly with its long ears flopped down. Flora covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes sparkling with delight. Wow, it's a rabbit. So cute. Robert explained proudly. Actually, we found this rabbit in the wild. The real present is something else. He held out his hand, and a ball of blue light gathered in his palm. Flora craned her neck to look curiously. Armand suddenly grabbed Robert's shoulder from behind. Hey, don't take it out here. Robert looked confused. Huh, why not? Armand lowered his voice, his tone urgent. You should show it in the training grounds. It's too dangerous here. Robert was shaken by him. Robert came to a sudden realization. Sorry. Flora tilted her little face, her eyes full of confusion. What's wrong? Why are you so flustered all of a sudden? She took a step forward and asked curiously, what's the real present? Robert and Armand's cheeks instantly flushed red, as if they had been struck in the heart by an invisible arrow. Armand and Robert squeezed their eyes shut, their faces beet red. Even though she's our sister, she's too pure and cute. Flora looked bewildered. Why are they suddenly acting like this? Robert leaned back abruptly, covering his face with his hands. I can't take it anymore. Armand, quick, cover my mouth. Armand grabbed Robert and pointed a finger at Flora. The present is still a secret. Can we show it to you at the training grounds? Flora nodded blankly. Oh, okay. Flora tilted her head slightly, her cheeks flushing. If it's too dangerous to show it here, what kind of present could it be? I have a bad feeling about this. Mother appeared at the door. She spoke gently. Good morning, Flora. Flora immediately ran to her. Mom. Mother swept Flora up in a hug, lifting her high. You're such a cuddly child, Flora. Flora buried her face in her mother's warm embrace. So warm. So this is what it feels like to be loved. Mother gently stroked her hair. You seem to have slept very well last night. Flora closed her eyes, enjoying the peace. Robert looked up at his mother. Mom, can we take it out now? Can't we show her before breakfast? Mother smiled, her gaze gentle. Wouldn't it be better to show her when the whole family is together? Robert got a little nervous. We have to wait until everyone is here? That makes me even more nervous. Mother made the decision. Then let's all go to the dining room. The children cheered in unison, yay. Flora responded excitedly, yes. The dining table was laden with exquisite food. Cakes, fruits, thick soup, and bread. The aroma was delightful. Father, sitting at the head of the table, looked at Mother. By the way, I heard you went into the mountains before dawn. Mother lowered her head and replied, yes. Flora and Armand sat at the table, waiting quietly for the meal to begin. Mother explained with a smile. Robert wanted to give Flora an apology gift. We were planning to show her later, but do you and Carlo Man have time? Carlo Man smiled with his eyes closed. As long as it's for Flora, I'm always free. Father also chimed in with a laugh, of course, me too. Flora held her cup with both hands. Wow, I can't wait. What could it be? Stop making me so nervous. The family arrived at the training grounds. Robert stood in the center, excitedly urging, hurry up, hurry up. He held out his palm, and a blue magic circle appeared out of thin air. The light swirled. A proud smile appeared on Robert's face. All right, Flora, I'll show you now. Flora stared at the scene before her in disbelief. Subspace. A giant white creature poked its head out of the magic circle. It was fluffy. Flora's eyes widened, her pupils contracting in extreme shock. Her mouth hung slightly open, unable to form a complete sentence. Is that? The divine beast suddenly opened its massive, bloody maw, revealing 2 rows of terrifying teeth. Its sharp, bird-like claws lunged forward. Flora screamed in terror, her body frozen in fear. Her eyes were wide open, her pupils reflecting the approaching giant beast. Mother looked at Flora in horror. She clung tightly to her leg, her body trembling with fear. Don't come any closer. Robert looked at Flora, confused. Huh, Flora? Don't you like my present? His face was filled with disappointment and hurt. I'm sorry. I thought you would like it. Flora cautiously reached out her hand and gently stroked the white creature's head. It's kind of cute when its mouth is closed. The creature suddenly opened its jagged mouth, revealing a mouthful of sharp teeth. No, not cute. It's a monster, Robert explained with a smile. Isn't he cute? He looks a lot like a pet I had as a child, so I caught him for you. Flora's face twisted in an instant. You kept this kind of creature? Flora clutched tightly to Armin's skirt, her body trembling uncontrollably. I knew this family wasn't normal. They even keep monsters. A strange voice spoke up. May I say something? Armand and his mother turned around at the same time. Flora peeked out from behind the skirt with half her head, looking terrified at the source of the voice. The strange man politely placed his hand on his chest. Miss, are you not afraid of monsters? The strange man's tone was gentle. Afraid of monsters? Flora, hiding behind Armand, nodded tremblingly. The man expressed his understanding. It's only natural for ordinary people to be afraid of monsters. The white creature shivered at his feet. He continued, I have a much younger sister. If even a single drop of monster blood gets on my uniform, she'll cry in fear when I get home. A gentle smile appeared on his face. Besides, this is the young master's first time. The strange man continued to explain. It's only natural for the young lady to be frightened seeing a monster up close for the first time. Armand immediately agreed. Yes, that's right. Robert's eyes sharpened. I understand. He pointed sharply at the white creature. So that Flora won't be scared anymore. I'll help you take care of it. The white creature shrieked in terror, its body beginning to tremble violently. It instantly collapsed to the ground, melting into a puddle of green liquid and letting out a faint whimper. Flora's face was filled with horror. Do not look at me like that. He took a sharp step back. Wait. Robert pulled him into an embrace. Flora clutched his clothes tightly. Can you send it back to where it came from? A blush appeared on Robert's cheeks. What kind, child? Robert held Flora tightly. Of course. I'll do anything Flora asks. Flora beamed with a brilliant smile. Thank you, Brother Robert. Later, I learned that the marshmallow-like monster was a herbivore that fed on tree bark. The white creature let out a long sigh of relief. Apparently, it was one of the few monsters that didn't harm humans, so rare that some nobles kept them as pets. It was so gentle, yet I was afraid of it because of its appearance. I'm so ashamed. I also feel sorry for my family, who gave it to me as a gift. Flora knelt down and carefully stroked the white creature. Armand and Robert watched him gently from the side. As for the rabbit Brother Robert brought back, we decided to keep it in my bedroom for now until it recovers. Flora fell asleep, slumped over the desk. Beside her sat a white rabbit with a bandaged front paw. What should I name him? The name Brother Robert gave him, Laura, is nice too. The white rabbit sat quietly on the chair, seemingly in deep thought. Flora leaned closer to him. The white rabbit gently nuzzled his head against her cheek. So you like the name? Can you understand me? Flora gently stroked the white rabbit's head. Then let's get along from now on. He whispered softly, Good night, Laura. The white rabbit curled up by the pillow and fell into a peaceful sleep. Flora tiptoed over, secretly observing the white rabbit on the bed. The white rabbit lay exhausted, its eyes tightly shut. He suddenly opened his eyes and sat up. I'm at my wit's end. Possessing Flora's Laura, his real name was Evan. Evan, from the slums, was discovered by an old man to have a talent for magic. After being adopted, he lived in the magic tower. The old man's true identity was the master of the magic tower. To make Evan's talent blossom, the tower master subjected him to rigorous training day and night. Evan spread his hands, his eyes burning with anger. I can't take it anymore. Evan gritted his teeth. How long must I live like this? Didn't you say my abilities were already sufficient? Let me go. The exhausted Evan protested to the magic tower master. The tower master responded expressionlessly, No. If you have time to complain, you should be training. The tower master glanced at him coldly, as if looking at a noisy insect, and gave the order without a trace of emotion. Having all his requests rejected, Evan screamed in despair. At this rate, I'll die before I even learn magic. The tower master watched him coldly. Don't worry, humans don't die that easily. Enraged by the magic tower master's stubbornness, Evan misspoke. Damn it, he shouted angrily. I'd rather be a rabbit than live like this. The magic tower master showed a strange smile. Oh, that's a pretty good idea. Evan was flustered. What are you talking about? He staggered backward. What's happening? The door slammed shut, locking him inside the room. The Magic Tower Master's voice came through the door. It might be good for you to be a rabbit for a while. Tell me which life is better when you return. Evan's pupils contracted. When did he? Wait, what did he just say? Evan's face twisted in fear. What? The Magic Tower Master crossed his arms, his expression cold. I have sealed your magic, leaving only a tiny bit. I will wait for the day you break the seal with your own power and return to this magic tower. Evan turned into a white rabbit. He screamed in terror. My voice. The Magic Tower Master's voice echoed in his mind. Don't make me wait too long. Evan, now a rabbit, chittered angrily. You damn old man. He found himself in a snowy forest. Where's this? I was just in the magic tower. Why am I running? He realized he was falling from a great height. This must be that old man's doing too. What did I do to deserve this? The Magic Tower Master pointed to a room covered in cobwebs. Clean this research lab. Evan lowered his head, holding a stack of books. Ever since that old man brought me here a few months ago, I've been doing all sorts of chores. Cleaning, preparing 3 meals a day for the mages. Evan, carrying steaming food, hurried through the corridor. I'm back. I even have to dispose of used tissues. He covered his mouth and nose with a handkerchief, his face full of disgust. In the end, I'm still doing all sorts of chores. Is this my reward? Evan, as a rabbit, sat on the chair with his arms crossed, fuming. To think I'd be brought to the Pazzi Duchy. A mage from the Magic Tower married into this family. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got, his red eyes burning with fury. That damn old man. Just wait until I get back. He's going to get it. Evan kicked his legs restlessly on the chair. Damn it. Will this magic seal finally be broken? He collapsed limply. What am I supposed to do? A knight reported to Duke Pazzi. Your Grace, regarding the young lady's social debutante ball, we hope you can set a date soon. Duke Pazzi signed documents with his head down. I'd like to, but I'm still a bit worried. Duke Pazzi clasped his hands, his expression anxious. Flora hasn't left 40 since she was born. If we make a big deal out of it like the semi-debutante ball, what if my frail child gets hurt or sick? The knight looked puzzled. The young lady is about to celebrate her 7th birthday. Isn't this the age when she needs friends? Duke Pazzi looked reluctant. But my other children are doing just fine without friends. The knight was at a loss for words. Well, the Duchess gently persuaded her husband. My dear, you're right, but we can't keep Flora in 40 forever. When she comes of age, she'll need to have a debutante ball. A debutante ball? The Duchess smiled. Yes, in 10 years, when Flora is 16, she'll need a debutante ball. Duke Pazzi pondered. 10 years, huh? It seems her social debut. That should be postponed until next year. He finally made a decision. Flora's social debutante ball will be held in 1 year. Flora's cheeks flushed. She clasped her hands to her chest. Are we really having a birthday party? That's wonderful. Can I go out too? The Duchess bent down and gently stroked Flora's head. Yes, it's time for you to make some friends and experience the world outside. Your older siblings had theirs at a young age. It was only postponed because you were frail. Flora snuggled shyly into the Duchess's embrace, while the Duchess smiled and looked at her husband. Duke Pazzi stroked his chin. He always kept his word, but in the end, he was persuaded by his wife. And Flora was indeed at the right age. Flora jumped up in excitement. This is great. I can't wait. On the morning of the party, Flora stretched in bed with a long yawn. She stepped barefoot onto the floor and slipped on her cute pink slippers. Flora pushed open the balcony doors, wrapping a blanket around herself to ward off the cold wind. She looked down at the fountain in the courtyard. It's still a bit cold. I wish it would warm up soon. Flora shivered slightly. She noticed the fountain was spraying water. Huh, there's water in the fountain? Flora was confused. I remember they always turn it off in winter because it freezes. A voice came from the courtyard. Flora. Robert was walking towards her. He waved with a bright smile. Good morning, Flora exclaimed. Brother Robert, what are you doing there? Robert turned and ran off. Wait there. I'll be right over. He leaped off the balcony, landing steadily on the snow. Robert spread his arms. Et avo. Flora watched, dumbfounded. Wow. Robert smiled proudly. What do you think? The fountain is beautiful, isn't it? It's a special gift I prepared for you. Flora was full of surprise. Brother, did you do this? With magic? Robert answered casually. Yeah, it wasn't hard at all. Flora lowered her head, touched. Thank you. It's really beautiful. A maid appeared at the balcony door. Young lady, so this is where you were. It's about time to get ready. Flora looked a little disappointed. Do I have to get ready so soon? Robert waved. I'll be going then, Flora. Flora smiled back. Okay, see you later. The maid gently combed Flora's silver hair. Young lady, this is your first party. How are you feeling? Flora sat at the vanity, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I'm super excited. Mom said I can make friends and go out to play now. The maid smiled gently. That's wonderful. By the way, for a week starting today, there will be a festival throughout the empire. Did you know? Flora's eyes grew even brighter. Come to think of it, my birthday is also a day worth celebrating, right? The maid continued, I think many of the guests coming today will also be attending the festival. Flora clapped her hands excitedly. Wow. Flora looked at herself in the mirror. Should I ask Dad if I can go too? The maid's voice interrupted her thoughts. First, let's get through your birthday party safely. Flora twirled in front of the mirror, her skirt blooming like a flower petal. Wow. Evan's ears twitched. I thought he was just a kid, but he cleans up pretty well. The maid chuckled. Oh my, young lady. It seems Laura finds you cute too. He's been staring at you like that. Flora asked in surprise. Really? She bent down. Laura, do you want to come with me? Evan shook his head firmly. I'm not going. I'm not going. Flora's face fell instantly. You don't want to go? The white rabbit's whole body was resisting, its ears drooping. The maid watched with amusement. Can rabbits understand human speech? It's almost like he's having a conversation with you, young lady. See? I had a feeling. Could it be? A reluctant Evan thought. Oh no. Flora's inner world bloomed in an instant. Could Laura be a genius? Flora hugged the white rabbit tightly, rubbing her cheek against his soft fur. Thank goodness. They didn't find out. Flora ran to the window, pointing down at the endless stream of magnificent carriages. Melanie, look at that. Is that whole line guests? The maid smiled reassuringly. Of course, young lady. After all, this is your birthday party. All these people are here to celebrate your birthday. Flora looked up, her eyes sparkling. Standing at the door was Carlo Man, dressed in a magnificent formal suit. Carlo Man smiled and held out his hand. Flora, are you ready? Flora's cheeks flushed. Wow, Brother Carlo Man, you look so handsome. Even though you're my brother, you're just too handsome. Another voice came from behind Carlo Man. Hey, I was going to escort him. Armand replied nonchalantly. That's because you were dawdling, Robert. You could just escort Armand. Armand closed his eyes, looking impatient. No thanks. I don't need an escort. I'm fine on my own. You should just worry about not getting lost yourself. Flora spread her arms and proposed a perfect solution. Then Brother Carlo Man can hold my left hand and Brother Robert can hold my right hand. Both boys were struck at the same time. Flora, the crystal chandeliers were dazzling and white peacocks stood elegantly. The ballroom was incredibly luxurious. A solemn voice announced, and now, entering is the star of today, Miss Flora and His Highness the Crown Prince. Flora, holding her two brothers' hands, stepped into the magnificent hall, her eyes filled with wonder and admiration. Armand clapped from the crowd, his smile radiant. Wow, Flora's red eyes sparkled. Wow. A nobleman came forward to present a gift. This is a token of my sincerity. A bracelet personally enchanted with a protection spell by the master of the magic tower. Another nobleman followed closely. This is a red diamond necklace that perfectly matches your eyes, my lady. Flora looked at the mountain of gifts, a little overwhelmed. The master of ceremonies' voice rang out again. His Majesty the Emperor and His Highness the Crown Prince have arrived. Flora stiffened slightly, her face full of confusion. The master of ceremonies' voice rang out again. His Majesty the Emperor has arrived, and the Crown Prince slowly approached, holding a huge gift box. His Highness the Crown Prince. Flora tilted her head up, her voice clear and respectful. Your Majesty, Your Highness the Crown Prince. It is an honor to meet you for the first time. The Emperor's voice was gentle. It's a pleasure to meet you, Flora. The Emperor's tone shifted. To be honest, I sent so many letters inviting you to the palace to play. The Duke stood in front of Flora. Haven't I told you? My youngest daughter is frail and sickly. Besides, don't you just want to set her up with the Crown Prince? The Emperor chuckled. You saw right through me. Even so, it's too cold of you not to come even once. The Emperor's gaze fell on the Crown Prince. All right, give him a gift. The Crown Prince replied in a low voice, yes. The Crown Prince presented the gift box to Flora. Miss Flora, happy birthday. This is a gift from me. Flora accepted the gift. Thank you very much, Your Highness the Crown Prince. His personality is completely different from his father's. Is it because he became the Crown Prince at such a young age that he grew up too fast? I think Lily mentioned before that His Highness the Crown Prince used to have a much more cheerful personality, but his smile disappeared as he grew up. Perhaps he's too immersed in his lessons as an heir. Flora held the gift box. He doesn't look much older than me. It must be tough. The Crown Prince watched him quietly, expressionless. The Crown Prince's figure glowed faintly. Flora let out a small grunt and leaned back. She snapped her eyes open, and a semi-transparent blue panel appeared before her. Status, Louis Carcassonne. Ability A. Wealth S. Appearance A+. Health B. Self-esteem C. Social D. What is this? Status list. Evaluation. Despite his high ability stats, he lacks confidence and doesn't know how to interact with people. He has suppressed his desire to have fun, focusing only on improving his abilities. Isn't this the kind of thing I used to see on the streets in my past life? Flora's red pupils widened slightly. Even so, these stats are too high, as expected of the Crown Prince. Except for the last two, his stats are high across the board. Self-esteem is C and social is D. No wonder he was so stiff when he gave me the gift. Wait, to have S-rank wealth and A-rank ability at 9 years old with A+ appearance. Isn't that cheating? If it were me, my self-esteem would be through the roof. But then again, why can I suddenly see this kind of thing? Flora rubbed her eyes, her body swaying. A gentle voice said, "Flora, are you not feeling well?" Flora looked up to see the Duke's concerned face. She quickly steadied herself. I'm fine. The Emperor's voice sounded again. "Flora, what's your first impression of my son?" The conversation was taking a strange turn. Since it's come to this, Flora stood on her tiptoes, reaching for Louis's shoulder. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, please excuse me." She carefully pinched a golden thread. "I saw a loose thread on you." The Duchess clasped her hands. "That's our Flora. To notice such a fine detail." The Duke also chimed in. "Yes, Flora is very meticulous." The Emperor laughed heartily. "Ha! It seems even the reliable Louis makes mistakes sometimes." Flora breathed a sigh of relief. "Good. Now I just need to keep my distance from the Crown Prince." Louis's cheeks flushed and his body trembled slightly. Flora, pinching the thread, looked confused. What's wrong with him? No way. Did I embarrass him?" Flora looked at him. "Because his self-esteem is low, he must think I made him lose face. I think I did something bad." Armand placed a hand on Flora's forehead. "Flora, are you really okay? You don't have a fever, though." Melanie's voice echoed in her ear. "I heard that His Highness the Crown Prince has been able to freely control ice magic since he was a child, and is thus deeply revered by the people of the South." Flora's cheeks flushed. "That's right, the new magic. With that, I might be able to save the Crown Prince's face." She felt a wave of heat. "It's suddenly so hot." Flora winked at Louis. "I could really go for something cold." "Please, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Get my meaning quickly." Louis's pupils constricted slightly. "Oh, this is the Crown Prince's ice magic." The air around them instantly froze. Countless ice crystals fell from the sky, shimmering with rainbow colors in the sunlight. Flora's eyes widened in amazement. "Wow." She held out her hands to catch a crystalline snowflake. "I've never seen such beautiful snowflakes." The Emperor's voice was full of admiration. "I've long heard that His Highness is proficient in ice magic, and he truly lives up to his reputation." "What magnificent magic!" A noblewoman whispered. "I look forward to seeing how powerful he will become when he comes of age." Flora thought to herself, "The reactions of those around are perfect." She turned to Louis, her hands clasped at her chest, and bowed slightly. "Thanks to you, I didn't faint from the heat. This is such a cool and wonderful magic." Louis stared at Flora. "After embarrassing me with the thread, now she's praising my magic." He couldn't understand it at all. What on earth is her goal? Flora gave a confident smile. "It seems it's time for the next phase." She turned to face the crowd. "By the way, when does the party end? I want to go out and play." Robert immediately responded. "Then let's go play outside together." Flora extended an invitation to the Emperor. "Your Highness, would you care to join us?" The Emperor put a hand on Louis's shoulder. You're around the same age, so this is a good chance to get along." The Emperor smiled and instructed, "Have fun and be safe. Make sure to stay by Flora's side and protect him well, Louis." Louis muttered, "I'm not so sure about this." The Emperor's voice became stern. "Don't grumble." Carloman advised, "Come back immediately if you feel cold." Carloman looked gently at Flora. "The ground might be icy. I'll carry you to the garden." Flora replied sweetly, "Thank you, Brother Carloman." Carloman pushed open the large doors leading to the garden. A blaze of fire shot up in the garden. Carloman, holding Flora, and Robert, standing beside them, were all stunned, staring at the sea of fire before them. Robert stammered an explanation. Brother, we were just trying to melt the ice. It was too dangerous with the ground frozen." Armand immediately pointed at Robert. "It wasn't me. Robert did it." Robert announced loudly, "Wait, I'll put it out right now." Carloman, holding Flora, put a hand to his forehead and sighed softly. "What is this situation? They're panicking over a fire they created with their own magic. Are they really the children of the infamous Pazzi ducal family? I heard they were very skilled at controlling magic, but seeing them panic like this." Louis held out his hand. A cold chill gathering in his palm. The remaining flames on the ground were instantly extinguished. Robert looked at the extinguished flames and spread his arms, looking smug. He stuck out his tongue. Just kidding. Hee. Armand immediately scolded him. Robert, mind the situation. You scared His Highness the Crown Prince. Robert said nonchalantly, oh, it was just a little joke. You're too serious. Louis was incredulous. A joke? He looked at Flora, his brow furrowed. I heard these twins are older than me, yet they're still pulling such childish pranks. Flora, leaning in Carloman's arms, watched the siblings with a deadpan expression, her eyes full of annoyance. Louis was confused. What? That fed up with the nonsense look on his face. Is this a common occurrence in the ducal household? In the garden, Armand and Robert played in the snow. Wow, so much snow. Armand and Robert cheered. I want to play too. Be careful when you play, Flora. Flora responded excitedly. Your Highness. Your Highness, come quick. The snow is cold and feels nice. He smiled brightly, holding out a hand to invite Louis. Louis looked at his bright smile, feeling a bit confused. He looked so annoyed just a moment ago. What a strange girl. But he remembered his father's instructions. Father told me to stay by his side and protect him. Louis and Flora stood in the snow, with Carloman watching from the side. The twin siblings were working together to roll a giant snowball. Flora slept soundly in bed, her breathing steady. Evan was curled up beside her. Carloman stood by the bed, gazing at him quietly. This is the first time Flora has seen so many people. He must be exhausted. Carloman said softly to Robert beside him, You're right. Let's go out. Don't disturb him. Robert nodded in agreement. The two turned and left the room silently, their footsteps echoing softly on the floor. In her sleep, Flora's lips moved slightly, making a vague sound. Flora woke with a start. Huh? Where? He stood barefoot on the cold floor, looking around in a daze. I should be sleeping in my bed. Why am I here? In this scene, I feel like I've seen it somewhere before. A gentle voice spoke. Long time no see. Flora's pupils contracted, and he looked up sharply. A man stood before him. It's you. A smile was on the man's face. Are you enjoying your new life? Your special benefit should have been activated by now. Flora looked up at him. Are you talking about that thing that lets me see other people's statuses? The man nodded in satisfaction. As expected, you noticed right away. The man explained, Since I didn't get to explain before, I've borrowed this dream space to see you. He continued, This ability to see other statuses is commonly called a status list. I believe it's the best compensation for your previous life where you were never loved. Considering your parameters from your past life, I set your favorability parameter higher than average. But that value only guarantees you'll be liked by your family and those around you. Therefore, to make it easier for you to gain the favor of people you meet for the first time, or even those who are hostile, I designed this status list. With this status list that allows you to see the other person's parameters, you can grasp their situation and communicate appropriately. Of course, you can also use it to further increase the favorability of those around you. Please be sure to make good use of it. Flora was thoughtful. When dealing with people, this thing is certainly useful. The man smiled, right? The man continued to explain. In the status list you see Miss Flowerbud. Miss Flora. Ability, wealth, appearance, health, and love are all fixed values that won't change until death. Flora raised her eyes. Does that mean the other items can be changed? The man gave an appreciative smile. Yes, you've already seen it, haven't you? Louis's status list appeared before his eyes. In the status list I saw, there were also self-esteem and social skills. And below that, there was a note called evaluation. The man confirmed his memory. Those are the variable parameters. They prioritize displaying the items most likely to win the other person's favor. He held up a finger. As long as you refer to these parameters and take action to raise the corresponding values, the other person will naturally develop a liking for you. If you can be liked by people other than your family like this, don't you think life would be more interesting? Flora raised a question. Then why did this benefit first activate on my 7th birthday? There must be a special meaning to that, right? The smile on the man's face froze. Flora's gaze sharpened. I've seen that expression once before. It was the same expression he had when he said he forgot to set my favorability parameter. Exactly the same. The man forced an awkward smile. There's a bit of a problem with my parameter settings. Flora's eyes turned icy. I have a bad feeling about this. The man clasped his hands together, trying to explain that it was a mistake on the part of our underworld. As expected, Flora crossed her arms. Really? Are you sure you're not hiding anything? Can the underworld really make so many mistakes? The man waved his hands frantically. Look, when you were a baby, you mainly interacted with your family, right? Even if you had the status list, it wouldn't have been very useful. So I thought it would be a better surprise to activate it when you were a little older and starting to interact with others. Flora's suspicion did not lessen. There aren't any other errors with my parameters, are there? The man immediately straightened his back. Of course, please rest assured, I will never make the same mistake again. He looked down at the clipboard in his hands. His face wore a professional smile. One more thing. The man raised a finger, his tone serious. Occasionally, there are people whose status lists you cannot see. I suggest you avoid them from the very beginning, because they are very dangerous. Flora asked, puzzled, why can't I see their status? The man explained, the power of the underworld has no effect on that person. This means they possess a power strong enough to repel the underworld's force. If you could make them an ally, they would be more reliable than anyone. But people with such power are all extremely eccentric. They could betray you at any moment, putting you in danger, Miss Flora. Although it's not common, please be careful. Flora's body began to turn transparent, and the surrounding scenery blurred with it. The man bid her farewell. Well, that concludes my explanation. Good luck to you. The dream dissipated, and the world dissolved into a pure white light. Sunlight streamed through the gap in the curtains, stinging Flora's eyes. She let out a small groan, and her body fell heavily off the bed. Ouch! Flora rubbed her drowsy eyes. A fluffy rabbit doll lay on her pillow. She grabbed it. You kicked me again, didn't you? How dare you kick your own master? You're such a bad boy. Flora hugged Evan in her arms. Hey, Laura, I've gained a mysterious power that lets me see other people's statuses. I want to try and see if I can see yours too. Evan suddenly kicked hard, struggling out of her arms. Flora stared at him in shock. Laura, wait. Evan landed lightly beside the bed. Flora reached out to grab him. Got you. She hugged the doll tightly, a triumphant smile on her face. Geez, what's wrong? Evan trembled nonstop in her arms, as if protesting. Flora leaned over the side of the bed, looking at Evan hiding underneath. Do you think I can't see you just because you're hiding? She leaned down. All right, I'm going to look even if you hide. Flora stared at Evan. Status list. A dead silence. Nothing happened. She tried again. One more time, status. The bedroom door was pushed open gently. The maid's voice came through. Good morning, milady. Are you awake already? The maid saw Flora's position. Oh my, you're playing with Laura. I'll just wait here for Laura to come out then. Flora looked up. Maybe I can't see it because Laura is an animal. Then I'll try it on Melanie. She looked towards the maid, a flash of determination in her eyes. Status. Melanie's status list instantly appeared. Ability B. Wealth D+. Appearance C+. Health A. AI evaluation. Diligent and hardworking. Doted on since childhood and accustomed to giving love. Naturally healthy, tall, and suited for tireless maid work. A slight smile touched Flora's lips. But I can't see anything besides the fixed values. He said that family and close ones would love me unconditionally. So does that mean I don't need to deliberately try to win her favor? Melanie will love me forever, even if I do nothing. Flora called out softly, Melanie. The maid replied gently, yes. Flora opened her arms. I love you. Will you always be by my side? Melanie returned a warm hug, her smile content. Of course. Milady. Flora's cheeks were pinched by a pair of large hands and pulled to the sides. She puffed her cheeks in annoyance. Robert leaned down, looking at her squished face, and let out a hearty laugh. Flora, you're so cute. Armin peeked her head around the door, a hint of surprise on her face. Armin slapped Robert on the head. Hey, can't you see Flora doesn't like it? Ouch. Robert clutched his head, complaining with teary eyes. That hurts, Armin. Armin turned to steady Flora, gently stroking her head. Flora, are you okay? The Duke watched this scene, a smile playing on his lips. All right, everyone sit down. Robert sat down reluctantly. Fine. The Duke picked up his wine glass, looking thoughtful. Speaking of which, today is Blessing Day. The festival should be in full swing. Flora's eyes lit up. A festival? That sounds fun. She looked at the Duke with anticipation. Papa, Flora wants to go to the festival too. The Duke took a sip of wine. Of course. I like to go too. He put down his glass. But Flora. The Duke gazed at her, a hint of worry in his eyes. The Duke refused flatly. Flora can't go. You just had a nosebleed a few days ago. Flora's cheeks flushed slightly. That was during a snowball fight. The Duke continued. Besides, if Flora goes to the festival, what if she bumps into someone or gets kidnapped by bad people? His eyes turned grim. Papa doesn't know what he might do. Flora's body stiffened. What a scary expression. She looked up, a hint of longing in her eyes. Then how old do I have to be to go to the festival? Flora sighed. The festival looks so fun. If I had a handsome knight like Papa with me, it would surely be safe. The Duke looked troubled. For my daughter's safety, I must resist. I must resist. Flora held a red apple in both hands, looking at him with pleading eyes. Please, Papa. The Duke was internally conflicted. No, I must be strict. Damn it, my daughter is just too cute. He hummed, hesitating. The Duke was hit. Flora wants to go with Papa. The words struck his heart like an arrow. A blush spread across his face, and his gaze instantly melted. Oh, you want to go with Papa? He pointed to himself, a brilliant smile on his face. That's true. If you're with Papa the whole time, it should be fine. Armin and Robert looked at each other, utterly incredulous. Flora looked bewildered. What'd I just say? I wanted to go to the festival so badly that I can't even remember the words that just slipped out. The Duke smiled. Flora is at an age where she should see the world. Flora's eyes widened. Is this for real? She lowered her head. Who cares? As long as I can go. Then she took a big bite of the apple. A crisp sound echoed. The carriage wheels turned slowly, leaving tracks on the snow-covered road. Inside the ornate carriage, Flora and the Duke sat opposite each other. The atmosphere was a little delicate. Flora's eyes widened in disbelief. We're leaving today? The Duke stood to the side, a gentle smile on his face. Flora looked up at him. Papa looked so happy. Thinking back on the 7 years since I was born, I don't think I've ever asked Papa to play with me. She looked up and asked curiously, Papa, have you been to the festival before? The Duke smiled confidently. Of course. Your mother and I went several times. The carriage entered the festival street. Colorful flags fluttered, and the air was filled with the sound of people. Flora let out a gasp of amazement. Wow. The carriage slowly came to a stop. The scene outside the window captivated her. Flora pressed her hands against the window, her small face close to the glass, her mouth forming a perfect circle. This is amazing. The Duke carried Flora towards the carriage. He announced softly, Flora, we're here. Flora let out a joyful squeal. The Duke carried Flora through the bustling crowd. Wow, so many people. We get separated if you let go. Whispers arose from the crowd. Is that the rumored little princess of the Duke's family? She'll be quiet. She'll hear you. The Duke turned his head, his icy gaze sweeping over the crowd. A sudden silence fell as if winter had arrived. Flora's body suddenly stiffened. She gripped her father's collar tightly, burying her face in his chest. The Duke gently patted her back, soothing her in a soft voice. You don't have to be so scared. Flora looked up, her red eyes filled with terror. She could clearly hear the surrounding discussions. The Pazzi family's reputation is really that bad. And because of that, the crowd automatically parted to make way for them. The Duke walked unimpeded, holding Flora. The people around them moved aside, their faces filled with terror and awe, as if avoiding a plague. The Duke looked at Flora gently. Flora, after we see the Snowflake Festival, shall we go eat your favorite cake? Flora responded excitedly. Okay. By the way, what's the Snowflake Festival? The Duke smiled. I don't think Flora has seen it before. Because the North has a lot of snow, we have a festival that uses snow. A red-haired man approached them, enthusiastically introducing. The festival will display various snow sculptures. The young lady will surely love them. Flora peeked out from behind her father. Snow sculptures? The Duke, holding Flora, looked down and asked softly, this year's works are even more spectacular than last year's. What do you think, Flora? Flora's red eyes were wide and round, her mouth slightly agape. Before her was a massive snow deer statue. Wow. Snow sculptures rose from the ground one after another, elves and unicorns looking lifelike. Flora looked up at the huge snow sculptures, her voice filled with disbelief. Are these all made of snow? The Duke smiled proudly. What do you think? The festivals in the North are amazing, right? Every year, sculptures made of snow are displayed here. Flora pointed into the distance at a magnificent snow castle. Is it a castle made of snow? The Duke looked down at her, his eyes gentle. Do you want it? Flora looked bewildered. Huh? The Duke rested his chin on his hand, lost in thought. To move that. Flora's eyes widened in terror, and she waved her hands frantically. No, that's okay. Such a wonderful piece of art should be seen by more people. A smile touched the Duke's lips. Is that so? Then let's go eat some cake. They walked into a cafe, the bell on the door tinkling. A staff member greeted them warmly. Welcome, Your Grace, the Duke. The staff member proudly introduced. Our desserts are all magically transported from all over the empire, using only the finest ingredients. I'm sure they will suit the young lady's taste. Flora pressed her face against the glass counter, her eyes sparkling. Wow, the table was filled with all sorts of desserts. Strawberry tarts, cupcakes, cream cookies, and an exquisite strawberry cream cake. The Duke watched Flora's satisfied expression and said softly, "Is it that good? You got some on your face." Flora wiped her mouth with a handkerchief, winking playfully. "Let's buy some to take home for Mama and my brothers." A commotion came from the entrance. A group of people walked in. They looked like Sister Armin's friends. Sister Armin's friends? Sister Armin actually has friends? A hint of awkwardness appeared on the Duke's face. About that. The Duke explained, "It's a girl that gives Armin a bit of a headache. I believe she's from the Bext family." The red-haired man added, "Yes, the second daughter of Count Bext. Princess Armin, before Princess Flora was born, was the Duke's only daughter. Therefore, His Majesty the Emperor was once very interested in her, considering her a candidate for crown princess. But I heard that due to a dispute with the Bext family's daughter, the imperial family withdrew the engagement." Flora asked curiously, "A dispute? What exactly happened?" The red-haired man looked troubled. "Ah, well, she used magic to make the Bext family's daughter float, spinning in the air." Flora was speechless with shock. Oh my God, they would definitely stop being friends after that. The red-haired man closed his eyes in resignation. "Yes, that's Sister Armin for you." The staff member handed over the packaged cake. "Here is the cake you ordered to go." Flora took the pink gift box with both hands and thanked them sweetly. "Thank you." Flora walked out of the shop and turned back to her father. "Papa, the cake was really delicious." The Duke smiled in response. "That's good. We'll come again next time." Behind the counter, the staff were ecstatic. The Duke of Pazzi's daughter said my cake was delicious. Flora held the pink gift box, full of anticipation. "I hope Sister Armin and Brother Robert like it too." The Duke sat in the carriage, watching her gently. "Flora, did you have fun today, just the two of us?" The Duke's eyes sparkled like stars, an irrepressible smile on his lips. Flora looked at him. What's with that expectant look in his eyes? If I said it was more fun with my brothers, he'd probably be very disappointed. Flora forced a brilliant smile. "Yes, I'm very happy just being with Papa." She closed her eyes, her cheeks flushing slightly. Monopolizing a handsome man's love is actually quite tiring. The carriage moved slowly through the magnificent streets, heading towards the ducal mansion. A street band played a cheerful tune. The conductor waved his baton, the atmosphere lively. Flora leaned against the carriage window, pointing outside excitedly. "Wow, Papa, look at that. This year's parade is even grander than usual. I used to only be able to see the scenery from a mansion, but coming out to the festival was definitely the right choice." Spring finally arrived, reaching even the frozen edges of the north. Armin and Robert were about to enroll in the Magic Academy. It was a boarding school, and they would have to leave the Pazzi estate during the term. Armin and Robert hugged Flora tightly, crying and not wanting to leave. "No, I don't want to leave, Flora." Flora was squeezed between them, but her face was beaming with happiness. "This is great. I can finally get rid of these two." The Duchess watched them gently. "Armin, Robert, you two must get along well at the academy." Robert's eyes were filled with tears. "It'll be lonely without seeing Flora. When we come back in the summer, we have to play a lot with Flora, okay?" Armin hugged Flora tightly. "If you get lonely, just tell me. I'll use space magic to fly back immediately." The Duchess smiled and turned. "All right, we should head back to the mansion. An important guest is waiting today." Robert pouted. "Could it be Grandpa?" Flora's eyes instantly lit up. "Grandpa?" The Duchess confirmed, "That's right." Armin immediately got excited. "I want to see Grandpa too. Can't I just say hello?" The Duchess reminded them helplessly, "What are you talking about? The entrance ceremony is about to start." The two of them snapped to attention. "All right." Robert and Armin ran towards the academy gates. They turned and waved goodbye. "Flora, you must take care of yourself until summer vacation." The Duchess gently stroked Flora's head. Flora waved back in response. A sly smile played on her face. Finally, freedom. The sky was a brilliant blue, cherry blossoms in full bloom, heralding a new beginning. In front of the master of the Magic Tower's mansion, a maid bowed. "I'm very sorry, madam. He is currently—" A silver-haired old man interrupted her. "Don't worry. She wanted to send off Robert and Armin, didn't she?" The maid breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you for your understanding. Please allow me to lead you to the reception room." She extended her arm to guide the way. The old man replied, "Lead the way." As they walked, the old man casually asked, "By the way, I heard that Armin and Robert broke another wall." He chuckled. "Ha, they're just like a young Agnes." The Duchess held Flora's hand, a hint of surprise in her eyes. "My goodness, the master of the magic tower." Flora looked up at her mother. "The master of the magic tower?" The master of the magic tower sat in an ornate armchair, his gaze falling on Flora. "Oh, so you're the little daughter of the Pazzi ducal family. You've grown quite a bit." Flora curtsied slightly. "Hello, my name is Flora." The master of the magic tower smiled. "We haven't seen each other since you were born, have we? Are Armin and Robert doing well?" The Duchess replied, "I've already heard. The notoriety of those two children has spread throughout the empire. Speaking of which, where did Laura go?" "Laura is missing." The Duchess looked at Flora. "Flora, what's wrong?" Flora answered in a small voice, "I haven't seen Laura for a while." The maid beside the master of the magic tower heard this. "Laura? I'll go look for her." Evan hid in a corner, his eyes displeased. "Why is that old geezer here? If he thinks he can turn me back into a human, he's got another thing coming." Flora anxiously grabbed the maid's skirt. "Where's Laura? I can't find him anywhere." The maid smiled and soothed her. "The knights are helping to look. We should have news soon. He's very smart. Maybe he'll come back on his own if we wait a bit." Flora looked around. "By the way, where did the grandpa from the magic tower go?" The maid turned and pointed to the door. "He just left. He said that if that rabbit gets hungry, it will naturally come back." "Don't worry." Flora was stunned. How did that grandpa know Laura was a rabbit? Did Melanie tell him? The maid noticed her gaze and looked back, puzzled. "What did you say?" "No, I didn't say anything." Flora and the maid looked at each other, the atmosphere momentarily frozen. Suddenly, a white rabbit peeked its head out from behind the door. Flora shouted in surprise, "Laura!" Flora scooped up the white rabbit, hugging it tightly. "Oh my gosh, where did you go? I was so worried." The maid sighed in relief. "Thank goodness he's found." She turned toward the table. By the way, on the table sat an exquisite gift box. The maid handed the gift box to Flora. "This is a gift from His Highness the Crown Prince for Miss Flora." Flora was a little confused. "The Crown Prince? Why would he suddenly send me a gift?" The maid smiled. "I suggest you open it and see. I'll go prepare the meal." Flora took the box. "Okay, thank you, Melanie." Flora sat down, holding the rabbit. "Why would he suddenly send me a gift?" "Well, since it's a gift, I should accept it gratefully. Let's see." She gently opened the gift box. Inside, a necklace lay quietly. "A necklace? If I recite the activation spell, my ice magic will manifest, but it can only be used 5 times. Flora picked up the accompanying letter. It was in the Crown Prince's handwriting. "This is no ordinary necklace. It is a magical artifact infused with my mana." She looked down at the necklace, a complex expression in her eyes. Flora held the white rabbit. "Laura, just a moment, okay?" She put the necklace around her neck and stood in front of the mirror. The white rabbit watched unhappily from the side. Flora looked at her reflection. "Wow, it's so pretty." She noticed the white rabbit trembling on the floor. "Huh, Laura, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Flora immediately became tense. "Oh no, I'll take you to the infirmary right away." Flora picked up the trembling white rabbit and tried to soothe it, but the rabbit's body suddenly began to expand. Flora stared in horror at the creature in her arms. What? The white rabbit grew larger and larger in her hands. She couldn't support it all and lost her balance. Flora screamed as she fell backward. She fell heavily to the ground. She opened her eyes in pain, her vision blurry. "Laura." Evan was looking down at Flora on the floor. He clutched his collar, his expression annoyed. "Damn it, why now of all times?" Flora looked up at him, asking with a tremble, Are you Laura?" Evan spoke slowly, sort of, but not entirely. "My name isn't Laura. It's Evan." Flora's pupils constricted, her lips slightly parted. But Flora lay on the floor. She stared at the man before her. "Why is your hair black?" Laura's was white. Evan put his hands on his hips, retorting angrily, "What's wrong with black hair?" Flora was completely confused. "Are you a beast man?" Evan's face drew closer as he denied impatiently, "No, I'm a normal human and a magician." Flora was still unconvinced. "But you clearly turned into a rabbit." Evan turned his face away, crossing his arms over his chest. "There were circumstances." Flora pressed on. "Then why did you turn back into a person now?" Evan's gaze sharpened. Evan's gaze fell on Flora's chest. "I didn't change back willingly. I was forced to. I think it's because of that necklace." Flora looked down at her necklace. "This necklace? But this is a gift from His Highness the Crown Prince." Evan's expression grew grave. "That Crown Prince seems to possess extremely powerful magic." Evan explained, I felt a strange aura even before you took it out of the box. I was shocked when I suddenly changed back into a human too. Flora was thoughtful. So it was the Crown Prince's magic in the necklace that forcibly changed you back? Evan nodded in confirmation. Probably. Flora's mind went blank. What is? Evan's figure blurred in her eyes, leaving only a bloody purple glow. Evan's body was enveloped in the purple light, and he changed back into the form of a white rabbit. Flora, still in shock, lay on the floor. She stammered out his name, Lau. Laura. No, it's Evan. Evan, in his rabbit form, closed his eyes in annoyance. Damn it. Flora held Evan. She asked in shock, did you just say damn it? Evan lifted his rabbit head. What? You can hear my voice? Flora stroked Evan's head and replied with a smile. Yes, loud and clear. So don't use such language in this form. Her fingertips gently combed through his rabbit ears. Flora's smile was gentle and helpless, as if she were calming a ruffled little animal. Evan's rabbit face was filled with confusion. You can hear my voice? What does this mean? Your magic is as weak as a sparrow's. It can't be telepathy. Flora's fingers suddenly tightened. Oh, that hurts. Flora lifted Evan high into the air. She laughed heartily. This is great. I finally have a playmate. A magical rabbit friend, no less. Evan's rabbit face was full of disdain. Don't get the wrong idea. Who said I'd be your playmate? He kicked Flora in the face. After that, until the seasons changed, Evan never turned back into a human. Or perhaps he just never changed back in front of me. Flora's eyes rolled back, and she fell over stiffly. Evan stood beside her, looking puffed up and angry. Time passed, and before she knew it, the cool autumn breeze had quietly arrived. Dragonflies dotted the autumn days. The high, clear sky held a growing chill, urging people to switch to long sleeves. Flora nibbled on a snack and muttered to herself, I wish I were good at magic or swordsmanship. Evan lay lazily on a chair and spoke. The family already has a mage from the magic tower and an excellent swordsman. Isn't that enough? Do you have to do it yourself? Flora said decisively, I want to do it myself. Evan lifted his head. Why? Is someone in the family bullying you or something? Flora shook her head. It's not like that. But look, I'm almost 8 years old. As the only girl in the family, isn't it lonely not to have a single specialty? Evan had a look of disdain. That's just how it is for noble ladies. They're doted on just for being cute, and yet you still want more. Flora shot up from her seat. That's it. If magic is out, why not learn swordsmanship? Flora burst into the Duke's study. She announced loudly, Papa, I want to learn swordsmanship. The Duke looked up, raising an eyebrow slightly. Swordsmanship? Flora didn't hesitate. Yes. When can I start? The Duke looked at his daughter's determined eyes, his heart filled with mixed emotions. I know she's almost 8, but in my eyes, she's still a child, and she's asking to learn swordsmanship on her own. He put down his quill and suggested with a smile, you can go ask Carlo, man. He should be at the training grounds right now. Flora's eyes instantly lit up. Really? I'll go see. She turned and ran out, her skirt creating a purple arc in the air. She rushed towards the training ground gates, shouting her brother's name. Carlo Man. Carlo Man turned around. Flora, what are you doing here? Did you come to play? Carlo Man scooped her up, letting her sit on his arm, so they were at eye level. Flora looked up. Carlo Man, can you teach me swordsmanship? Papa told me to ask you. Carlo Man pondered for a moment. Probably not today. How about tomorrow morning? Can you wake up early? Flora nodded vigorously. Of course. Thank you, Carlo Man. The next morning, at the Pazzi ducal family's training grounds, banners fluttered in the gentle breeze. The Duke stood before a group of knights. He addressed them loudly. Listen up. You all know what day it is, right? The knights responded in unison. Yes, sir. It is Miss Flora's first day of training. The Duke's gaze swept over them. Good. I will be instructing her personally, but you are all to support her with all your might. The knights answered in unison again. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, in Flora's bedroom, a maid knocked gently on the door. Milady, are you awake? Flora sat up in bed, rubbing her drowsy eyes and letting out a muffled sound. The maid smiled and reminded her, today is your first day of learning swordsmanship with Master Carlo Man. I'm sure you'll improve quickly. Milady. Flora turned and grabbed the rabbit from her bedside. Evan, hey, wake up. Let's go together. Evan's cheeks were pinched. He growled in annoyance. Don't touch me. Evan's voice echoed in Flora's ear. Your brother is waiting for you. Get a move on. He jumped off the bed and vanished out the door in a white blur. Autumn leaves drifted down. On the training grounds, Carlo man watched his sister's figure. Flora, isn't this sword too heavy? Are you okay? Flora gripped the wooden sword with both hands, her face beaming with excitement. I'm Fina. She examined the wooden sword in her hands. Not too light, not too heavy. Although I know nothing about swords, this wooden sword feels pretty good. Carlo man began to instruct. First, let's try a diagonal slash. Hold the sword like this, and then swing. He swung his sword fiercely, and the blade whistled through the air. Flora looked at the scarecrow that had been split in two. Splitting a scarecrow in half with a wooden sword? Carloman's voice came from the side. Flora, you just need to tap it lightly. She stood before the training dummy, her heart pounding. Carloman's skill level is too high. Can I really do this? Flora took a deep breath and swung the wooden sword with all her might. Hiya! The wooden sword struck the dummy with a loud thud. The spectating knights erupted in enthusiastic cheers. Carloman smiled and praised. Oh, not bad, Flora. Flora looked bewildered. Was that really okay just now? Flora collapsed into a chair, her arms sore and weak. I'm so tired. I can't even lift my arms. Evan's voice rang out. Welcome back. You were amazing just now. A glint appeared in Flora's eyes. Amazing? Really? Even though I have no stamina, it felt pretty good. Could it be that I have a talent for this? Evan looked at her expressionlessly. I meant you were amazingly bad. Flora was thunderstruck. What? In the Duke's study, Carloman stood before his father. Father, it's me, Carloman. The Duke looked up. How is Flora? Carloman's expression was grave. She's even less talented than I expected. I came to discuss with you what we should do. I don't think we should have her learn swordsmanship. If it's for self-defense, it would be faster for me to stay by her side and protect her. The Duke asked calmly, what is the basis for your judgment? Carloman explained, Flora's athletic reflexes are practically zero. If she continues training, she'll likely get seriously injured. But then his tone shifted. However, she does need to build up her stamina. So, I think we should focus on basic physical training for now. The Duke pondered. I suppose letting her hold a sword occasionally during that process shouldn't be a problem. A knock came from the door. Flora peeked her head in. Papa, may I come in? The Duke immediately smiled. Flora, your first training session must have been tiring. Is something the matter? Flora walked to the desk, looking a bit dejected. I don't think I'm very good at sports. She looked up, her eyes pleading. Besides swordsmanship, can I learn something else? The Duke and Carloman looked at each other, stunned. She gave up on her own initiative. Flora clenched her fists, a light rekindling in her eyes. I want to learn how to cook. The Duke and Carloman said in unison. Cooking? In the Carcassonne Empire, it was rare for nobles to dabble in cooking. Even if they did, it was limited to the south, where ingredients were abundant. While it wasn't uncommon for nobles in neighboring countries to take up cooking as a hobby, it was unheard of for a noble in the northern part of the empire to learn it. The Duke fell into thought. Cooking, you say? He lifted his gaze, his eyes gentle yet firm. I understand. Since this is Flora's wish, then there's no problem. I'll make the arrangements immediately. Flora cheered. Yay! Thank you, Papa. The ducal residence was bathed in the autumn sun, maple leaves falling like fire. A maid watched Flora. The Duke's love for his daughter is truly bottomless. Flora stood in the brand-new kitchen, her eyes shining. Wow, they really spared no expense. The Duke's voice rang out. I had this specially prepared. I hope Flora can learn as comfortably as possible. How is it? Do you like it? The Duchess added gently. Seeing Flora so motivated makes me so happy. Flora threw herself into her parents' arms. Papa, Mama, thank you. The Duke introduced a lady to Flora. This is Nia. She was formerly a pastry chef at the Imperial Palace. Starting today, she will be your cooking teacher. Nia curtsied slightly. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Flora. The Duke and Duchess waved goodbye and turned to leave the kitchen. Flora looked around. This kitchen is so spacious and lovely. Papa and Mama prepared it for me. Thanks to them, I was able to meet such a wonderful teacher like you. Nia responded gently. The Duke and Duchess truly dote on you. By the way, my lady, why did you want to learn how to make sweets? Flora tilted her head. Probably because it looked fun. Nia smiled. That's a good enough reason. Flora thought to herself, right? Before the lesson officially starts, I should check the teacher's status parameters. It might be helpful. She secretly glanced at Nia. Status. Perhaps it would be helpful. She secretly glanced at Nia. Status. A blue information panel appeared behind Nia. ability, A, wealth, B, appearance, B, health, A, love, B, sadness. Evaluation. Carrying memories of her husband, she came to the north alone. Her favorite food is the blueberry pie her husband used to make before he died. Flora's gaze froze. This was unexpected information. All her stats are A or B. That means she was born into a fairly good family. But her sadness is an A. Losing her husband must have been so painful. Flora raised her small hand. Teacher, I want to learn how to make cookies today. Nia picked up a bottle of ingredients. That sounds nice. Let's begin the lesson then. The table was covered with flour, butter, and eggs. Flora responded excitedly. Okay. Nia began to explain. The key to making sweets is repetition. You must let your body memorize every step. It's meaningless if someone else does it for you from the start. Flora, completely focused, mixed the batter in the bowl with a whisk. Nia picked up a bag of sugar. Next is the sugar. She suddenly froze. Oh my, a rabbit. Outside the window, Evan was clinging to the curtains, his red eyes narrowed in displeasure. Flora turned pale. Ivan, no. Laura, what are you doing outside the window? Evan's voice echoed in Flora's mind. I came to observe the lesson. Nia asked curiously, is that your pet, my lady? A maid hurried forward. Goodness, I'll hold Laura. Nia breathed a sigh of relief. That's a relief. It's not very sanitary to have animals in the kitchen. The maid picked up the white rabbit from the windowsill. Flora instructed, you're right. Melanie, please take good care of him. Melanie sat to the side, holding Evan. Evan squirmed unhappily in her arms. Flora licked her lips, stealing her resolve. Since Evan is watching me, I have to do a good job. Flora held a baking sheet, her eyes sparkling with amazement. Wow. The baking sheet was filled with all sorts of cookies, in various shapes, baked to a golden, crispy perfection. Nia looked at the finished product, her eyes full of praise. Goodness, they're baked so beautifully. Melanie, holding Evan, couldn't help but admire them too. Yes, to be so successful on the first try. Flora puffed out her chest proudly, her eyes shining. Of course. In Melanie's arms, Evan eyed the cookies suspiciously. They smell okay, but are they really edible? Nia reached out and gently picked up a cookie. Nia reminded her, they're still hot. Be careful. Flora reached out and lightly touched a cookie, a confused look on her face. Teacher, the cookies are soft. Did I mess up? Nia smiled and explained, they're soft now. They'll get hard after they cool down. Then we'll coat them with chocolate for decoration. Flora understood. Oh, I see. She picked up the baking sheet and turned towards the window. Evan, in Melanie's arms, questioned, hey, where are you going? Flora opened the window, and a cool autumn breeze blew in. If I let the cool wind blow on them, they should cool down quickly. On the branches outside the window, a few sparrows chirped, attracted by the aroma of the cookies. They flapped their wings and flew straight towards the baking sheet in Flora's hands. Flora was stunned. She let out a shriek. Wait, no. Those are my cookies. The sparrows paid no heed, snatched the cookies, and flew away. Flora pouted, her cheeks puffed. Honestly, they ate some of them. Nia came over with a bowl, comforting her gently. There. Don't be sad, my lady. We still have plenty left. Let's continue finishing the rest. Flora looked at the decorated cookies that filled an entire basket. Wow, they're so pretty. Nia smiled and announced, that's all for today's lesson. You've worked hard. I'll take my leave now. Flora's gaze became determined, looking off into the distance. Flora handed 2 cookies to Nia, her face beaming with a brilliant smile. Nia, thank you for teaching me how to make cookies today. She then turned to Melanie, handing her a rabbit-shaped cookie. These are for you, Melanie. Melanie took the cookie with both hands, her eyes filled with emotion. Oh my, cookies made by the young lady herself are too precious. I can't possibly bring myself to eat them. Flora picked up the basket full of cookies and announced, all right, I'm going to take some papa now. She turned and left with the basket, leaving a smiling Nia and Melanie behind her. Autumn leaves fell. Flora walked through the hallway and saw a familiar figure. It's David. David was sitting cross-legged on the floor, carefully polishing his sword with a white cloth, his expression focused and serious. Flora greeted him enthusiastically. David, she handed him a cookie, unconcealed pride on her face. For you. I made this myself. David knelt on one knee, accepting the cookie solemnly with both hands. Lady Flora, to think you would make cookies for someone like me. He lowered his head, his voice trembling with emotion. I will never forget this kindness. I swear to protect you with my life and soul until... Flora was taken aback by this display and quickly waved her hand to cut him off. Well, I still have to take some papa. I'm going now, bye. She turned and hurried away, leaving David kneeling alone on the spot. My lady. Flora arrived at an ornate door. She gently pushed it open a crack and peeked inside. "Papa, are you in there?" The atmosphere in the room was serious. Her father was sitting on a throne, discussing something with several knights. "Oh, are they discussing official business? I'll just give him the cookies and then head back quickly." The Duchess saw Flora, and a gentle smile immediately bloomed on her face. "Did you have fun with your lesson today?" Flora held the cookie basket high, her voice full of excitement. It was very fun." Carlo Man walked over to them, announcing with a serious expression, "Flora, starting next week, Mother and I might have to leave home for a while." Flora looked up, her eyes full of confusion. Why?" Carlo Man explained, "There's been an increase in monster sightings recently. Mother and I need to join the subjugation team." Flora's smile froze on her face. "What? Brother Carlo Man and Mama are going too?" "Usually it's just Papa. At most, Mama and one brother are enough. This time, even Brother Carlo Man has to go. Things must be serious." Her father's voice was apologetic. "If Armin and Robert were here, your mother could have stayed with you. But the situation is..." Flora straightened her small frame, her eyes bright and determined. "I'll be fine." She clenched her fists, her voice clear and strong. "Melanie and Lucas will be with me, so don't worry about me. Do your best out there." She smiled and waved goodbye to her family, who were about to go on an expedition, not a trace of gloom on her face. Flora held up 3 heart-shaped cookies with Papa, Mama, and Brother written on them respectively. Her father took the cookies, his eyes showing approval. "Oh, these are too beautiful. I almost don't want to eat them." The Duchess laughed happily. "I almost want to display them in my room." Carlo Man smiled at Flora. "Thanks to you, Flora, I think we'll be able to give this mission our all." The family sat together, enjoying the cookies Flora made herself. The atmosphere was warm and happy. This was their last gathering before their departure. Evan lay alone on the bed, his arms spread out, feeling the changes in his body. "The time I can maintain my human form is getting longer and longer. At this rate, I'll be able to return to the magic tower soon." Evan stretched, his body sprawling on the soft bed. Being lazy like this isn't so bad, actually." He turned his head, a thoughtful glint in his red eyes. "I wonder who the next master of the magic tower will be. I need to recover my body and go back as soon as possible. But on second thought, in a family full of powerful people, she's just a weak little girl with no abilities. If I leave, what will happen to that child?" A memory surfaced, Evan gently stroking Flora's head. Flora squinting her eyes happily, like a small animal being petted. Flora holding Evan up, laughing happily. Evan struggled reluctantly. "Although, it has nothing to do with me." On the morning the subjugation team departed, Flora stood on the manor's balcony, shouting to the distance, "Everyone, don't get hurt. You must come back safely." The Pazzi-ducal family was powerful not only because of their innate strength, talent, and immense wealth, but also because they regularly hunted the monsters that threatened the empire. When winter came, hungry monsters often invaded human territories. Therefore, the hunts were always carried out before the start of winter. The Duke, clad in armor, gave a thumbs up full of confidence. "It usually takes 3 days, but I can't leave Flora alone for that long. We'll finish this at full speed and come back immediately." The Duchess gently stroked Flora's head. "Flora, you wait for us and stay healthy. Remember to stick with Melanie, okay?" Flora nodded vigorously. "Okay." The sound of horse hooves rang out as the subjugation team's figures quickly receded into the distance. Flora and the maid stood on the steps, waving goodbye. Even at full speed, it will take 2 days at the earliest. Flora stood in place, unconsciously twirling a strand of her hair. "Everyone's gone. What should I do?" Melanie leaned close to Flora, a confident smile on her face. "Please don't worry, my lady." She straightened up, placing a hand on her chest. "I, Melanie, will ensure you have the most wonderful 3 days." Flora stood in the empty hall as Melanie closed the door behind her. Thinking about everyone being gone makes the house feel a bit lonely. "Looks like I can relax for the next 2 days. I'll play with you." Flora turned around, her red eyes shining. Where have you been?" She ran towards Evan, a hint of reproach in her voice. "Lately, you disappear whenever I'm not looking. It's so suspicious." Evan sat on the carpet, expressionless. "Where I was isn't important." Flora put her hands on her hips, her brow furrowed. What's with that attitude?" Melanie smiled and suggested, "My lady, it's been a while. Would you like to go to the Garden of Trials for some hot chocolate and cake?" Flora's eyes lit up. "That sounds wonderful. Melanie, will you eat with us?" Melanie readily agreed. My lady, you go ahead to the garden and play with Laura. I'll come over after I finish up my work. Flora nodded obediently. Okay. She turned to Evan. Evan, do you want hot chocolate too? Evan's ears twitched. Of course I do. Flora walked through the ornate indoor garden. It feels like it's been a long time since I came here. Evan, beside her, it had been a long time. Flora's gaze was drawn to the sight before her. Wow. She looked at the exquisite cake on the table, her eyes sparkling with surprise. Is this carrot cake? Evan stretched out a small paw and secretly nudged the cake a little closer to himself. Flora watched Evan's small movement and asked with a smile, do you like carrot cake that much? I'll make some for you next time, okay? Evan looked up, his gaze serious. You'd better keep that promise. Flora smiled more brightly. Of course. She rested her chin on her hand, her tone changing. Speaking of which, you've completely adapted to a rabbit's body, haven't you? Is there anything uncomfortable? Evan hugged his paws and turned his face away. I just had no choice but to adapt. How could I possibly want to get used to this body? Flora rested her chin on her hand, pondering. It's strange. Now that Evan has become like this, I can't seem to remember what he originally looked like. What did his face look like? I think he was a kid about my age. His eye color should be the same as mine. Was his hair black? Evan suddenly leaned in. What about black hair? Flora was startled. Goodness, were you listening? I said I can't remember Evan's face. As for what I looked like when I was little, he asked curiously, so how old are you really? I'm almost 8. You're probably 9. Evan peeked out from behind the railing. That's right, but I'm almost 10. Flora asked curiously, you're older than me. Do you have any siblings? Evan nibbled on a sweet. I don't have a family. I used to live in the slums with my grandmother. After she passed away, I was alone. Now I live with the person who took me in. Flora gave a warm smile. It's so wonderful that you met a kind person. Evan chewed his food, but his eyes held a complicated look. It's hard to say if they're a kind person or not. Flora suddenly remembered something. Oh, right. Evan, you can use magic, right? How much magical power do you have? A small crown appeared above Evan's head. Why do you ask? Flora explained. I suddenly remembered that I have very little magical power, so I got curious about what other mages are like. She added with a laugh, speaking of which, I've never had my magical power measured. Evan closed his eyes. Well, I'm not doing anything anyway. It won't hurt to try. Evan opened his eyes, a purple light flashing in them. Flora leaned in expectantly. Is it done? How is it? Evan feigned calmness. It's okay, I guess. Flora frowned. What do you mean it's okay? Give me a straight answer. My magical power is bottomless, like an inexhaustible spring. I can absolutely never tell her that. Evan speared a piece of cake. More importantly, you said before that you can see other people's statuses, right? Flora blinked. You mean the status window? Evan pressed on. Yes, that. Why can't you see my status? Flora speared a piece of cake. Well, there are people like that sometimes. Someone told me to be careful if I meet one. Evan's ears perked up. Why? Flora recalled as she chewed. Let me think. They said that kind of person possesses powerful magic, enough to repel the forces of the underworld. But that's definitely not you, Evan. He forcefully speared a piece of cake. Forget it. Whatever. Evan looked out the window, thoughtfully. It's about time. The discussion about the next master of the magic tower has already begun. I don't have much time left. During the monster subjugation, I have to change back to my human form and return to the magic tower. Flora picked up her teacup and took a gentle sip. Evan watched her quietly. How should I tell her? Flora put down her teacup. Why does my heart feel so heavy? Night fell. A flock of birds flew over the manor under the starry sky. The room was empty, with only the curtains fluttering gently in the evening breeze. Flora was sleeping peacefully in her bed, her long, silver-white hair spread across the pillow. Evan gently tucked her in, then turned and left. His footsteps echoed in the empty room. He walked out of the room, his figure disappearing beyond the door. The moonlight was bright, bathing the quiet balcony. Evan leaned alone against the railing, gazing up at the night sky. The moon is beautiful tonight. Evan glanced back, his gaze gentle. Honestly, sleeping so soundly. He turned, and a purple magic circle lit up at his feet. He instantly vanished from the balcony. The next moment, he appeared before a magnificent white castle. This was the magic tower. A silver-haired elder was lying in bed. His eyes were tightly shut. Evan's figure appeared silently. The elder's eyes snapped open. He sat up, a hint of displeasure in his tone. Seriously, can't you come in a little more quietly? Evan stood at the door, the light of the magic circle at his feet fading. This is what young mages are like these days. Evan spoke expressionlessly. Old man. The elder raised an eyebrow. You're not even calling me Tower Master anymore? He sighed. Can't you stick to one name? What incomprehensible brat. Evan got straight to the point. Confirm who the master of the magic tower is. His eyes sharpened. Don't tell me it's me. The elder stroked his beard. I wasn't planning on telling you yet. He gave a helpless smile. But you've already guessed, haven't you? What annoying brat. Evan's pupils contracted. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple. He whispered in disbelief, is it really me? Evan roared, if I'm the next master of the magic tower, then why the hell did you turn me into a rabbit? The elder crossed his arms, his tone flat. What do you think? Evan fumed. I'm asking you because I don't know. The elder closed his eyes and sighed softly. A brat will be a brat. Evan couldn't take it anymore. Stop calling me a brat. Hurry up and explain. He clenched his fists tightly. Is it because I didn't come back right away? Are you angry? There was a reason for that. The elder turned, his voice calm. Humans only show their true potential when pushed to their limits. I was thinking about this, and you happened to say something interesting. I thought it was a good idea, so I decided to try it. A smile played on the elder's lips, but the plan didn't go exactly as I wished. Is life at the ducal house comfortable? Evan peeked out from behind him. I knew it. You knew everything from the start. You came to see me that day too, didn't you? The elder turned his head to the side. More importantly, seeing you grow has put my mind at ease. The precision of your magic is much higher than when you were in the slums. Evan's expression froze. Sweat slowly trickled down. Back then, memories flooded back. A young him, dressed in rags, cupping a faint flame in his hands. It was his only warmth. I completely hid my power. I used magic to conjure water, to wash myself, and used magic to pick fruit to satisfy my hunger. If the people in the slums found out I could use magic, they would have lined up to use me. Until that day, a shadowy figure appeared before me. The first time I saw you, I saw through to your potential. He reached out his hand. It was as if I was drawn into a massive vortex of magical power. That was the first time I had ever felt such immense power. I never doubted it. This child would one day surpass me. The only problem was, the elder looked at Evan. You're a lazy fellow, willing to throw your talent down the drain. Evan stomped his foot in anger. Lazy fellow, ever since I came to the magic tower, you've worked me to the bone. I haven't had a single decent break. The elder crossed his arms. What are you talking about? The training and the chores were all to hone your magic skills. They were part of the curriculum. Evan was at a loss for words. I understand, but the elder's expression was serious. I needed your talent to blossom as quickly as possible. Perhaps I was a bit harsh on you in the process, but it was all for your growth. He held out his hand, his tone leaving no room for argument. Do you think you could have grown to this extent in 2 years without me? Evan gritted his teeth. Damn it, everything he's saying is true. I can't refute any of it. Fine, thank you very much, and please continue to guide me in the future. Are you satisfied? It's not like I have any reason to stay at the ducal house anymore anyway. The elder nodded in satisfaction. Good, as long as you understand. My retirement isn't far off now. The magnificent manor was bathed in the morning light. A call broke the silence. Laura. Flora peeked out from behind a bush. Laura. Melanie looked around anxiously. Goodness. Laura, where did you go? He's disappeared again. Flora squatted down, dejected. Yeah, I can't find him anywhere. Melanie, holding a cake, sighed softly, and the young lady went to the trouble of making a cake, especially for him. Flora smiled sheepishly. I didn't make it all by myself. Nia helped me this time. I hope I can make one on my own someday. Flora looked at her gently. It's okay. Let's save Laura's portion for now. Let's eat ours first. Melanie picked up a fork. All right, my lady. Flora speared a piece of cake and ate it absent-mindedly. It's been 2 days since everyone left for the monster subjugation. Maybe they'll be back tonight. Melanie's voice came from a distance. What should we play today? How about a puzzle? We can play card games after that. Flora sat alone on an ornate sofa. Why isn't Laura back yet? She looked at the slice of cake left for Laura on the table, her eyes dimming. Flora stared at the cake, pouting. If he doesn't show up soon, I'm going to eat all of this cake. A voice suddenly spoke up. Eat what? What's this? Flora jumped in surprise. A strange, black-haired young man was standing in front of her. Lao Laura? No. Evan? Flora's eyes widened. You've completely changed back to your original form? At first glance, he looks like a boy I don't know. But why does he feel so familiar? Evan walked forward. Yes, I won't be turning into a rabbit anymore. His blunt way of speaking. It's exactly the same as when he was in his rabbit form. Flora's cheeks instantly flushed red. Evan pointed at the cake. Is this for me? Flora turned her head away and huffed. So what if it is? I'm not telling you. Evan reached for the cake, picked up a bit of cream directly with his finger, and put it in his mouth. The two of them froze instantly. The atmosphere tensed. Flora slammed the table. Hey, you're not a rabbit anymore. You have to use utensils. Evan's face turned red as he hurriedly defended himself. My hand moved on its own. Flora rested her chin in her hands, a blush creeping onto her face. Is that so? He's pretty cute when he's flustered. Even when he's not in his rabbit form, he's quite likable. She asked expectantly, is it good? Evan picked up a fork and cut a piece of cake. The taste is different from before. Did you get a new pastry chef? Flora's face fell instantly. She demanded loudly, so, is it good or not? Evan savored it, then closed his eyes. It's delicious. Although it's different from before, I like it. Flora's eyes sparkled. You always pick out the carrots, so I chopped them up really small. It tastes much better this way, right? Evan looked at the bits of carrot on the cake. Is this a new recipe? You chopped them up. Don't tell me. You made this? Flora puffed out her chest proudly. I made it. Evan was completely shocked. That's amazing. Flora's cheeks were slightly red. I promised I'd make it for you before, remember? Evan looked down at the cake. I just didn't expect you to make it so soon. He speared a small piece of cake and chewed it slowly. Evan squinted his eyes happily, wiping the plate clean. I'll make it for you again. Flora smiled and leaned closer. Really? Her tone then shifted, becoming downcast. But you're not a rabbit anymore. You have to go back to that landlord, don't you? Evan answered calmly. I'll come to see you often. Flora asked curiously, how will you come? Evan gave a confident smile. I can teleport. I can come over from the balcony anytime. Flora instantly cheered. That's great. She thought excitedly, this is so exciting. It's like we have a special relationship. To become close friends who can visit each other by teleporting. Flora's smile was radiant, but Evan suddenly became serious. Weren't we already in a special relationship? Pet and owner. Flora's smile froze on her face as the image of that arrogant rabbit appeared in her mind. Evan continued to press. By the way, what about now? Can you still not see it? Flora looked blank. Huh? What do you see? Evan looked straight at her, his gaze sharp. My identity.